Be quiet. She lunged and kissed her billionaire boss to save his life. But this happened. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The ballroom shimmered under 1,000 lights, each chandelier scattering gold across the marble floor. Cameras flashed, music swelled. Billionaire tech mogul Ethan Ward stood at the podium, delivering the final words of his company's annual gala. He looked every bit the untouchable CEO, impeccable suit, calm eyes, the kind of man who owned every room he entered. From the side aisle, Lena Cruz scanned the crowd. Her earpiece buzzed softly with static. She had been hired as part of the event's internal security team only 3 days earlier. No one here knew her name, but she knew every exit, every suspicious movement, every blind spot in the grand hall. The lights dimmed slightly for the closing toast. Guests raised their glasses. And that was when Lena saw something that did not belong. A faint red dot trembled across Ethan's chest, moving up toward his throat. It was not a reflection. It was a targeting laser. Her breath caught. The room slowed. In the split second between realization and action, her body moved before her mind did. She dropped her glass, sprinted through the crowd, and leapt onto the stage. Ethan barely had time to turn. "What the—" "Be quiet," she whispered, grabbing his face and pressing her lips to his. The world exploded in a burst of light and sound. A bullet shattered the glass column behind them. Guests screamed. The security sirens blared. To the crowd, it looked like a scandal, a reckless, shocking kiss under falling sparks. Cameras clicked wildly. To Lena, it was survival. She stayed close to shield his body as guards rushed in. The smell of gunpowder mixed with perfume and champagne. Seconds later, the shooter vanished into the chaos. Ethan's security detail surrounded the stage. He pulled back, stunned, eyes wide in disbelief. "Who are you?" Lena's voice shook, but her gaze stayed steady. "Someone who just saved your life." For a long heartbeat, no one spoke. The photographers kept shooting, unaware they had just captured something far bigger than gossip. By the time police arrived, the headlines had already been born. Security worker kisses CEO in front of hundreds. Scandal at Ward Industries gala. Outside, under flashing red and blue lights, Lena stood alone near the barricades, her face pale, hands trembling. The adrenaline faded, replaced by the sting of what she knew was coming: judgment, mockery, disbelief. Inside the building, Ethan sat in a private room surrounded by bodyguards. He replayed the moment again and again in his mind, the look in her eyes, the crack of the gunshot, the heat of that instant. Every instinct told him it was not an accident. But the PR team was already whispering damage control. "Do not make statements tonight, sir. Let us handle it," his advisor urged. Ethan stared at the window. Outside, reporters swarmed the entrance, shouting questions. His pulse was still racing, the echo of that kiss still haunting him. He had been kissed before by women who wanted power, money, or attention, but this one felt different. It had come with fear, with urgency. Meanwhile, Lena walked down the rain-slick street toward her small apartment, her heels clicking against the pavement. The city's glow reflected on puddles like broken glass. She had no idea the entire world was already talking about her. Her phone buzzed a message from her supervisor. "Report to HR tomorrow morning. Bring your badge." She stopped under a streetlight. The wind cut through her thin jacket, carrying the echo of the night's chaos. Somewhere behind her, a siren wailed. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "I did the right thing, I know I did." But deep down, she also knew sometimes the right thing still costs everything. The next morning, sunlight poured through half-closed blinds in a small apartment on the east side of the city. Lena Cruz sat at the edge of her bed, still in yesterday's jacket, staring at the phone on her nightstand. It had not stopped vibrating since dawn. Every major news channel replayed the same clip: the kiss, the flash, the chaos. Commentators talked over each other, arguing whether it was a publicity stunt or a scandal. None of them mentioned the bullet hole in the marble pillar behind Ethan Ward. Her inbox was filled with messages. Some were cruel, others mocking. "Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame," one said. Another wrote, "Hope the kiss was worth your career." She deleted them all. At 8:30, she stood before the HR office of the security agency. The director, a woman in a dark suit, did not even look up from her computer. "Miss Cruz, we have to let you go. The client's board wants no further contact. You acted outside protocol." "I stopped a sniper," Lena said quietly. "Without authorization," the woman replied. "You made the company look reckless. Good luck, Miss Cruz." The words stung more than she expected. She turned in her badge and walked out into the bright morning. The city hummed, as if nothing had happened. Across town, inside Ward Industries headquarters, Ethan stared at a frozen frame on the security monitor. The slow-motion footage showed the faint streak of a projectile crossing behind him, shattering glass. Then Lena's figure appeared, moving faster than any guard on duty. She had saved him. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His head of public relations stood beside him. "We need to release a statement, sir. The media are asking about the woman. They think she kissed you for attention." Ethan's jaw tightened. "There was a shot fired. Someone tried to kill me." "Yes, and that makes it worse. Investors hate uncertainty. Let the story die quietly. We will focus on the IPO." He glanced at the paused screen again, at the exact frame where Lena's eyes met his. She deserves better than silence. That afternoon, the city buzzed with new headlines. Analysts dissected every angle of the event. Talk shows turned the footage into memes. One late-night host joked, "That is one way to get your boss's attention." Lena avoided television entirely. She took a temporary job delivering packages for a local courier service. Anything that kept her moving and unseen. Every time a billboard flashed Ethan's name, she turned away. One evening, while waiting for the bus, she saw a young boy drop his backpack into a puddle. She bent down, helped him retrieve his soaked homework, and smiled faintly. "You will dry it. Just do not give up." It reminded her of her mother, a police officer who used to say, "Doing the right thing does not always mean you get thanked for it." 3 days later, Ethan's assistant slipped a flash drive onto his desk. "We found this while reviewing footage from the gala." Inside the file was a zoomed-in image of a laser reflection traced back to a balcony door. The bullet was real. Someone had planned his death carefully. Ethan sat in silence. Every instinct told him the woman who saved him was being punished for protecting him. He opened his laptop, searched the HR reports, and found her address still listed on the employment file. That evening, rain returned to the city. Lena was wiping tables at a small cafe near the train station when the doorbell chimed. She looked up, and there he was, Ethan Ward, the man whose life she had saved, standing in a gray coat dripping water onto the floor. For a moment, no words came. Then she said softly, "I thought the company wanted nothing to do with me." "I am not the company," Ethan answered. His voice was quieter than she remembered. "I came to thank you." She forced a small smile. "You already did. You kept silent. That said everything." He hesitated, taking in her tired face the faint bruise still visible near her wrist. "I watched the footage. You were right. Someone aimed to kill me. You saw it before anyone else did." "Then tell the world," she said. "Clear it up. They think I am a fraud." "I cannot," he said, his tone heavy. "If I admit there was an assassination attempt, our stock will collapse. Thousands of employees would lose their jobs." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "So my reputation is cheaper than your company's shares." Ethan looked down, ashamed. "I wish I could fix both." The cafe grew quiet except for the rain hitting the glass. After a moment, he placed a small envelope on the counter. "Inside is a check. Consider it compensation." Lena did not even look at it. "I did not save you for money." "I know," he said softly. "That is why I cannot forget you." Before she could reply, a car honked outside. A sleek black sedan waited at the curb. He stepped back toward the door, pausing for one last glance. "If you ever need help, call me." When he left, she opened the envelope. Inside was not just a check, it was a business card embossed with gold letters. Ethan Ward, Chief Executive Officer, Ward Industries. On the back, written in neat handwriting, were 5 words. "You saved me. I owe you." She stared at it for a long time, then folded it carefully into her wallet. Later that night, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse office, watching the storm roll across the skyline. His reflection stared back from the glass, fractured by lightning. He replayed her words in his mind. Tell the world. He knew she was right, but the risk was enormous. Still, guilt pressed heavier than fear. He reached for the phone, dialed a private investigator, and said quietly, "Find out who tried to kill me. and make sure no one else blames her again. Far below, the city glowed like a circuit board, alive with secrets. Neither of them knew it yet, but the truth they were about to uncover would connect them far deeper than that single kiss ever could. Rain still covered the city like a thin gray curtain the next morning. Lena Cruz sat by the window of her apartment, tracing raindrops with her finger on the glass. The business card lay on the table beside her coffee cup, the golden letters glinting faintly in the dim light. She had thought about throwing it away more than once, but something stopped her. Maybe curiosity, maybe unfinished business. Across town, Ethan Ward was already in his office before sunrise. The skyline outside his window shimmered beneath low clouds. He had not slept much. His private investigator, a former detective named Harold Finch, stood opposite his desk with a folder in hand. "The shot came from this building across the street," Harold said, laying out photographs. "Rented under a false name, paid in cash. But there is one lead. The shooter used an access card that belonged to one of your senior engineers, James Rowe." Ethan frowned. "Rowe has been with us for 10 years. Why would he? Maybe someone used his credentials," Harold interrupted. "But there is more. The security team that fired Miss Cruz? Someone inside pushed that order fast, almost like they wanted her out of the picture." Ethan leaned back, realization beginning to form. "You think it was internal?" "I think whoever tried to kill you works inside your company," Harold said quietly. "And Miss Cruz may have seen something she does not even realize yet." Ethan closed the folder slowly. "Find Rowe," quietly. Later that day, Lena received a call from an unfamiliar number. She hesitated before answering. "Miss Cruz?" The voice was deep, steady. "This is Ethan Ward. Please, do not hang up." She froze. "How did you get this number?" "I need to see you. It is important. You may have noticed something that can help us identify the shooter." "I already lost my job because of your company," she said sharply. "Why would I help you again?" "Because this time, it could save lives, not just mine." There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Where?" "Ward Industries headquarters. Tonight, after hours. Come through the service entrance. I will meet you there." The lobby of Ward Industries felt like a different world after dark. Most of the lights were off, leaving long shadows across the marble floor. Lena walked through the empty hallways, her footsteps echoing softly. Ethan waited near the security control room, dressed in a black coat, his tie loosened. "I am sorry for what happened to you," he said. "You should not have paid the price for my silence." She crossed her arms. "You said you wanted me here for work, not apologies." He nodded and opened the door to the control room. Monitors lined the walls, displaying archived footage from the gala. He handed her a headset. "Watch this. Tell me if you notice anything unusual." The screen replayed the chaotic night. Guests running, lights flashing, guards shouting. Then, for a brief second, a figure in a maintenance uniform appeared near the balcony where the shot had come from. The badge on his chest was visible for only one frame. Lena leaned closer. "Pause there. Zoom in." The image sharpened. She gasped. "That is James Rowe. I saw him backstage earlier that night. He was nervous, kept checking his phone." Ethan nodded grimly. "He disappeared 2 days after the gala. No one has heard from him since." "So what now?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Now, we find out why." For the next week, they worked together in secret. Lena analyzed surveillance footage while Ethan used his connections to trace company accounts. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. Someone inside Ward Industries had embezzled millions through shell contracts. The attempted assassination was meant to stop Ethan from discovering the fraud before the IPO. Late one evening, as they pored over documents in Ethan's office, he looked up and studied her in the soft lamplight. "You could have ignored my call," he said quietly. "Why did you come back?" Lena hesitated. "Because running from the truth never fixed anything. My mother used to say that." He smiled faintly. "She sounds like a brave woman." "She was a police officer," Lena replied. "She died protecting a stranger." Ethan's voice softened. "Then courage runs in your family." They fell silent for a moment, the only sound the hum of computers and the rain against the windows. Just after midnight, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from Harold Finch appeared on the screen. "Rowe spotted at the old shipping docks." Ethan grabbed his coat. "We have him." Lena stood too. "I am coming with you." He hesitated. "It could be dangerous." "I have already been shot at once. I can handle it." The docks were deserted when they arrived. The wind carried the scent of salt and metal. A single light flickered above a warehouse door. Inside, crates were stacked high, and in the center stood James Rowe, pale and shaking, a pistol trembling in his hand. "Stay back," Rowe warned, his voice cracking. "You do not understand, Ethan. They made me do it." "Who did?" Ethan demanded. Rowe's eyes darted toward the dark corner behind him. "You will not survive if I talk. They own everything." Before he could say more, a shot rang out. Rowe collapsed instantly. Lena dropped to her knees beside him, but it was too late. Ethan looked up just in time to see a shadow fleeing through the back exit. Security sirens wailed as police units closed in. Within minutes, the area was surrounded, but the killer had vanished. Back at headquarters, Ethan stood at the window of his office, watching red and blue lights flash in the distance. Lena placed a hand on the glass beside his. He was terrified. Whoever did this is still out there. Ethan turned to her, his expression hardening. "Then we find them, no matter what it costs." For the first time, there was no distance between them, not billionaire and employee, not savior and victim, just two people bound by the same truth. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, and somewhere in the dark, the real enemy watched, waiting for the next move. The city did not sleep that night. News of the shooting at the docks spread fast, filling every television screen and headline by dawn. Most reports mentioned a possible suspect connected to Ward Industries, but no one knew the full story. Inside the headquarters, Ethan Ward had locked himself in his office, surrounded by files and surveillance footage. Lena Cruz entered quietly with 2 cups of coffee. She looked exhausted but steady. "You have not slept," she said softly. "Neither have you," Ethan replied without looking up. Rowe's death was not random. Someone wanted him silenced before he could talk. "Culprit." She placed 1 cup beside his desk. "Then we keep digging. Whoever killed him is still inside your walls." Ethan's phone buzzed. It was Harold Finch again. "I have something," Harold said over the speaker. "Rowe was moving funds through a fake vendor called Argon Logistics. Guess who signed off on every transfer?" "Who?" Ethan asked. There was a pause. "Your chief financial officer, Paul Granger." Ethan froze. Paul had been his mentor for years, the man who helped him build the company from scratch. "That cannot be right," he said quietly. "I double-checked," Harold continued. "The transfers go back months. Rowe must have found out and tried to warn you. Granger had motive, access, and the resources to hire a professional hitman." Ethan ended the call and stared out the window. The skyline was pale with morning light, yet everything felt darker. Lena studied his face. "What will you do?" He took a deep breath. "If Granger is behind this, I need proof solid enough to confront him. No more speculation." By afternoon, Ethan called for a board meeting. Lena waited outside in the hallway, listening through the glass as raised voices echoed within. Granger sat confidently across from Ethan, denying everything. "This is absurd," Granger snapped. "You are letting paranoia destroy years of trust." Ethan slid a folder across the table. "Bank statements, wire records, fake vendor contracts, all signed by you. Explain this." Granger's face twitched. "Those were automated authorizations. You know how the system works." "Then why did Rowe die after mentioning Argon Logistics?" Ethan pressed. The room went silent. Every executive watched in uneasy silence. Finally, Granger stood up, adjusting his tie. "You have no proof I was involved in his death. Watch your accusations, Ethan. You are risking everything you built." "Coming." He left without another word, but his eyes carried something that chilled Ethan to the bone. Later that evening, Lena found Ethan sitting alone in the darkened conference room. "He will try to cover his tracks now," she said. Ethan nodded. "Which is why we cannot give him time. Harold is tracing the last outgoing transfers. If we can intercept one, we will have evidence that cannot be denied." For the next 2 days, they worked non-stop. Lena monitored access logs while Ethan combed through encrypted emails. The tension between them grew quieter, heavier, not romantic yet, but charged with mutual respect and exhaustion. At midnight on the 3rd night, Lena found something. "Look at this," she said, pointing at the screen. "A scheduled transaction for $10 million to a foreign account under Argon's name. It is set for tomorrow morning." Ethan's pulse quickened. "We can stop it, but we need to catch him in real time." Misa. They set up hidden cameras in the finance office and looped the security feed. Lena coordinated with Harold remotely while Ethan waited near the elevator. At exactly 9:15, Paul Granger entered his office, carrying a small briefcase. He closed the blinds, logged into his terminal, and began typing. The system recorded every keystroke. The countdown bar on the transfer window reached 90% when Ethan stepped inside. "Going somewhere, Paul," Ethan said calmly. Granger spun around, startled. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Ending this," Ethan replied. "The police are on their way." For a moment, Granger's composure cracked. "You have no idea what you are doing. That money, those accounts are not just mine. They belong to people who will make you disappear if you push further." "I will take my chances," Ethan said. Granger reached into his briefcase. Lena appeared in the doorway just as he pulled out a small handgun. "Do not move," he shouted. Lena froze, raising her hands. Ethan stepped forward slowly. "Paul, do not do this. It is over." But before he could say another word, a gunshot shattered the glass wall. Granger stumbled back, the gun clattering to the floor. He had been shot, but not by Ethan. From the hallway, security agents rushed in, weapons drawn. Harold Finch appeared behind them, lowering his smoking pistol. "He aimed at you," Harold said calmly. "I had no choice." Local. Ethan looked down at Granger, who was still breathing but fading fast. "Who are you protecting?" Ethan demanded. Granger's eyes flickered. "You do not understand," he whispered. "It goes higher." His voice trailed off as medics burst in. Hours later, Ethan stood outside the hospital ward, the sterile smell filling the air. Granger was alive but unconscious, under police watch. Lena joined him in the corridor, holding 2 cups of coffee again. "You saved me twice now," he said quietly. "You keep finding ways to need saving," she replied with a tired smile. He chuckled faintly, then turned serious. Granger's last words, "It goes higher." He was not lying. There is someone else pulling the strings. "Do you think it is about money?" "No," Ethan said. "This is about power." They stepped outside into the cool night. The storm had passed, leaving puddles shining under streetlights. For a brief moment, the world felt still. Ethan looked at Lena, his voice softer. "You did not just save my life. You saved what little faith I have left in people." She met his gaze, steady but unsure how to respond. "Then promise me one thing," she said finally. "When this is over, do not go back to silence. Tell the truth." He nodded slowly. "I will. No more silence." Somewhere behind them, an unmarked car sat parked in the shadows. Inside, a man in a dark suit spoke quietly into a phone. "Granger failed. Ward is still alive. Move to phase 2. The line went dead. The man started the engine and drove away, disappearing into the city's maze of lights. Neither Ethan nor Lena knew that their battle had only just begun, and that the next move would test not only their courage, but the fragile trust growing between them. The next morning, the city woke under a pale sky that looked almost too calm after what had happened. Ethan Ward stood by his office window, staring at the skyline, his reflection split by the glass. The news was everywhere again: corporate betrayal. CFO arrested in Ward Industries scandal, assassination plot foiled. The headlines were loud, but the truth was still incomplete. Granger was in police custody, unconscious and unable to talk. Lena Cruz entered the office carrying a folder of reports. She had traded her old security uniform for a plain blazer. She looked more like an investigator now than a guard. "I brought the new evidence from Harold," she said. "He traced the shell companies connected to Argon Logistics. Every one of them leads to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands." Ethan turned from the window. "And whose name is on those accounts?" "None that we can confirm yet," she replied. "But the pattern is clear. Granger was a middleman. Someone much higher is moving the money." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Granger said it goes higher. We just have to figure out who he meant." Before Lena could answer, Ethan's assistant entered with a sealed envelope. "This was dropped off this morning. No return address." Ethan opened it carefully. Inside was a single photo and image taken from a distance, grainy but clear enough. It showed Ethan and Lena leaving the hospital the previous night. Scrawled across the bottom in red ink were the words, "You cannot hide from us." Lena's eyes widened. "They are watching you." "They are watching both of us," Ethan said, slipping the photo into a drawer. "Whoever this is, they are not finished." Later that afternoon, Harold called. "I found something strange," he said over speaker. "One of your major investors, Marcus Hale, has been quietly buying up your company's shares during the chaos. He is close to gaining controlling interest." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Marcus Hale? He was at the gala the night of the shooting." "Exactly," Harold replied. "He also funded several of Granger's side projects. If he takes control, he gets the company and silences you for good." Ethan hung up the phone and turned to Lena. Hale wants everything. He used Granger to destabilize the company, and me as a target. So what do we do? She asked. He looked at her with quiet determination. We fight back, but we do it the right way. No more secrets. That evening, Ethan held an emergency press conference. Cameras flashed as reporters crowded the room. He stepped up to the podium, his voice steady but charged with emotion. For weeks, I have remained silent to protect my employees in this company. But the truth deserves to be heard. There was an attempt on my life. My former CFO, Paul Granger, was involved, and others may still be at large. We will cooperate fully with law enforcement and reveal every name connected to this corruption. The room erupted with questions. One reporter shouted, "Mr. Ward, who saved you that night?" Ethan glanced toward the side of the stage where Lena stood, half hidden in the crowd. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then said clearly, "Her name is Lena Cruz. She risked her life to protect mine when no one else did." Gasps filled the room as cameras swung toward her. For the first time, Lena did not look away. She met their lenses head-on, her chin lifted. The truth was finally in the open. When the press conference ended, they stepped outside into the cool evening air. Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "You are free now. No more hiding." Lena let out a shaky laugh. "Free and unemployed." "Not anymore," he said. "I want you to head our new corporate security and ethics division. I cannot think of anyone more qualified to keep this company honest." She blinked, surprised. "You are serious?" "I am very serious," Ethan said. "And I owe you more than a job. I owe you a chance to rebuild what we both lost trust." Before she could answer, the distant sound of sirens grew louder. A police car turned the corner, lights flashing. Harold called from Ethan's phone. "They have found Hale's private jet on the runway. He is trying to leave the country." Ethan's face hardened. "Then let us make sure he does not get far." Within the hour, they were at the airfield. Police surrounded the plane as Hale's guards tried to block the path. Lena and Ethan arrived just as Hale was being escorted down the steps in handcuffs. He looked calm, even smug. "You think you won, Ward?" Hale said. "There is always another one waiting to take my place." Ethan stared at him coldly. "Maybe, but not today." The officers led Hale away, his words fading into the wind. Lena watched silently as the flashing lights reflected off the wet tarmac. "Is it really over?" she asked quietly. Ethan looked at her, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "Not yet. But for the first time, it feels like we are finally in control." As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight cut through the clouds, glinting across the city's glass towers. Ethan and Lena stood side by side, watching the sky turn gold. For the first time in weeks, there was peace, fragile, but real. And both of them knew this was not the end of their story, only the beginning of what came next. The following days brought a strange quiet that felt almost foreign. Ward Industries returned to its normal rhythm, but whispers lingered in the hallways. Employees looked at Ethan Ward differently now, not as the untouchable billionaire, but as a man who had faced death and refused to hide. Lena Cruz adjusted to her new role as head of corporate security and ethics. Her office overlooked the city skyline, smaller than Ethan's but filled with light. On her desk sat a single-framed quote from her late mother. "Do the right thing, even when no one is watching." It reminded her why she was there. That morning, Ethan stopped by her office with 2 coffees. "You are already working before sunrise," he said with a faint smile. "Old habits," she replied. "You look better today." "I feel better," he said. "For the first time, I can breathe." Their moment was interrupted by Harold Finch, entering with a thick folder. "Before you relax, I think you should see this," he said. The investigation into Marcus Hale's network uncovered something else. There are documents showing that Ward Industries' data servers were accessed from inside the company 2 nights ago, after Hale was arrested. Ethan's expression changed. "You mean someone else is still inside?" Harold nodded. "Whoever it is, they covered their tracks well. But they downloaded the full list of shareholders and upcoming project bids. If that information leaks, it could destroy everything you just rebuilt." Lena stood, determination returning to her voice. "Then we find them before they disappear." For the next 48 hours, they traced digital footprints across dozens of servers. Lena stayed awake through the night, eyes fixed on glowing screens, her fingers tapping rapidly across the keyboard. Every time she found a clue, another firewall appeared to block her path. At dawn on the second day, She found it a log entry under a restricted username, C. Granger. It was Paul Granger's account. Ethan frowned. That cannot be. He is still in police custody. Unless someone is using his credentials, she said. Look at the timestamps. The access came from a terminal in the hospital. They exchanged a look and left immediately. The hospital corridors were quiet, filled with the faint smell of disinfectant. 2 officers guarded Granger's door, but when Ethan flashed his identification, they stepped aside. Inside, the room was empty. The bed was unmade, and the window stood open. "He is gone," Lena whispered. Ethan's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. It contained a live photo of you from a security camera showing Granger stepping into a black car. Below it were 4 words. "You should have stayed silent." Lena's heart raced. They took him. Whoever was behind Hale is cleaning up everything. Ethan clenched his fists. Not this time. They followed the car's signal across the bridge out of the city. The GPS ended at an abandoned industrial park, the same one where the first attempt on Ethan's life had been planned. Rain began to fall as they approached the building. Inside, shadows moved among stacks of rusted machinery. A man stepped forward, tall and calm, wearing a dark coat. It was Marcus Hale's lawyer, the same man who had represented him during the trial. "You should have walked away, Mr. Ward," he said. "This company belongs to people far above you." Ethan took a step forward. "You mean criminals?" The man smiled coldly. "We prefer the term investors." Without warning, 2 guards raised their weapons. Before they could fire, Lena threw a flash grenade from her vest. Light exploded across the room. In the chaos, Ethan grabbed her arm, and they ran toward the exit. Bullets sparked off the walls as they sprinted through the rain. Outside, Harold's car screeched to a stop. "Get in," he shouted. They dove inside just as the guards burst from the doorway. The car sped away, tires splashing through puddles. Behind them, the warehouse erupted in flames. Breathing hard, Ethan looked back at the inferno. They destroyed everything, every record, every lead. Lena shook her head. "Not everything. I backed up the files before we left. Their network, their shell accounts, every transaction, we have them all." Ethan turned to her, a mix of relief and admiration in his eyes. "You really thought of everything, did you not?" "I learned from the best," she said softly. That night, back in his office, Ethan sent the files directly to the federal authorities. The investigation widened immediately. For the first time, the people pulling the strings behind Hale and Granger had names and faces. As the city lights flickered below, Lena stood beside him, the glow of the monitors casting pale light across their faces. "You could have lost everything," she said quietly. "I already did once," Ethan replied. "This time, I had someone worth fighting beside." Lena met his eyes, her voice gentle but firm. "Then promise me, no more secrets." He nodded, no more secrets. Outside, the rain eased, and the night finally broke into silver light. For the first time since the chaos began, both of them felt the weight lift, knowing the truth had survived the storm, and so had they. The following week unfolded like a storm that refused to settle. News broke that several high-ranking executives across multiple corporations were under federal investigation, all tied to the same offshore accounts that Lena Cruz and Ethan Ward had exposed. The city buzzed with headlines: corporate web unraveled, Ward Industries leads whistleblower movement. But with every victory came new danger. Ethan knew the people behind the network would not go down quietly. Security around the headquarters was doubled, and every visitor was screened. Yet the real threat, he suspected, would not come from outside, it would come from someone still close. Late one night, as the city slept, Ethan sat in his office staring at the dark skyline. Lena entered quietly, setting a mug of coffee beside him. "You should rest," she said. He smiled faintly. "If I close my eyes, all I see are headlines. The more truth we uncover, the more enemies we make." Lena leaned against the desk. "Then maybe that means we are finally doing something right." Before Ethan could reply, the intercom buzzed. It was Harold Finch, his voice tight with urgency. "Ethan, you need to see this. One of our internal servers has just gone live again, the one we shut down last week." Lena's eyes narrowed. Someone is inside the system. They rushed to the control room. On the monitor, streams of code flashed rapidly. The hacker was trying to wipe every piece of evidence from their investigation. Lena's fingers flew over the keyboard. "They are in through a remote access port. They are deleting everything from the mainframe." "Can you stop them?" Ethan asked. "I can slow them down, but I need to trace the signal," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Whoever it is knows our system as well as I do." Then, as she worked, something appeared on the screen, a single message typed across the feed. "Hello, Miss Cruz. Did you miss me?" Ethan froze. "Who is that?" Lena's face went pale. "It is Paul Granger. He is still alive." A chill ran through the room. The next moment, the power flickered, and every screen went black. Harold's voice came through the intercom again. "Backup generator online. We are switching to local servers." When the lights returned, a live video feed appeared on one of the monitors. It showed Granger sitting in a dimly lit warehouse, the same one that had burned a week earlier. "You really thought you won," his voice rasped through the speakers. "You should have let me die when you had the chance." Ethan stepped closer. "Why are you doing this, Paul? You are destroying everything you helped build." Granger laughed bitterly. "I built this company and then you stole it. Now I am taking it back." Lena typed quickly, tracing the feed's IP address. "He is somewhere near the docks again," she said. "We can pinpoint the signal within 10 minutes. Ethan nodded. "Then we end this tonight." An hour later, rain began to fall as they arrived at the docks. The old warehouses stood like dark monuments against the gray sky. Inside one of them, they found Granger surrounded by computer monitors and open crates of cash. His eyes gleamed with anger and desperation. "You could have walked away," Granger said as they stepped in. "You had your company, your reputation, but you could not resist playing the hero." "This is not about heroism," Ethan replied. "This is about justice." "Justice?" Granger scoffed. "You think the world cares about justice? It only cares about who controls the money." He turned toward Lena, his voice venomous. "And you cost me everything. Do you really think Ward will keep you around when this is over? You are just another pawn he will forget." Lena's voice was calm but sharp. "I have nothing to lose, Paul. That is why you will not win." Granger pulled a gun from his coat, the metal glinting in the flickering light. "Then let us find out." Before he could fire, Ethan lunged forward. The gun went off, the sound deafening in the hollow space. The bullet shattered a nearby window. Lena grabbed a loose pipe from the ground and struck the weapon from his hand. It clattered across the floor. Granger stumbled back, grabbing a live power cable from one of the computer rigs. Sparks flew as he swung it toward them. "If I go down, I am taking you both with me." Lena shouted, "Ethan, move!" She rushed forward, tackling Granger just as the cable struck a puddle of water. Electricity surged through the floor, and the lights exploded in a shower of sparks. When the smoke cleared, Granger lay unconscious, his hand still gripping the burnt wire. Lena knelt beside him, shaken but alive. Ethan crouched next to her, his voice filled with relief. "You saved me again." She looked up at him, soaked from the rain and trembling. "You would have done the same." Police sirens echoed in the distance. Harold appeared at the doorway, leading officers inside. "We have it all recorded," he said. "Every confession, every wire transfer, every file. It is over." As the officers took Granger away, Ethan helped Lena to her feet. The warehouse lights flickered one last time before going dark. Outside, under the falling rain, Ethan looked at her and said quietly, "I do not know how to thank you." Lena smiled faintly. "Then do not. Just make sure this never happens again." He nodded, his eyes soft. "That is a promise." As dawn broke over the harbor, the last traces of the storm faded. The city, bruised but alive, was ready to start again, and so were they. The sun rose quietly over the city the next morning, soft gold spilling across the skyline like a promise of peace. For the first time in weeks, Ward Industries was calm. The investigation was over. Paul Granger was in custody, and the federal agents had confirmed the collapse of the entire corruption network. The headlines read, "Ward Industries cleared of scandal," and for once, Ethan Ward did not mind seeing his name in bold letters. Inside his office, the atmosphere felt lighter. The windows were open, letting in a breeze that carried the scent of rain and new beginnings. Lena Cruz stood by the window, watching the sunlight dance across the streets below. The chaos that had defined her life for so long was gone, replaced by quiet and purpose. Ethan entered, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "You have a way of showing up early no matter what time I get here," he said. Lena smiled softly. "Someone has to make sure the CEO is not getting into trouble again." He chuckled. "That is a full-time job, you know." They stood in silence for a moment, both looking out at the city that had tested them and shaped them. Ethan's voice broke the stillness. "The board has approved a new initiative. a foundation to support victims of workplace corruption and people who risk their lives doing the right thing. I want you to lead it. Lena turned, surprised. You want me to run it? You earned it, he said. You did not just save my life. You reminded me why this company exists in the first place. It is not about profit. It is about integrity. Her eyes softened. You really mean that? I do, Ethan said. And I mean this too. No more secrets, no more silence. We build everything on truth from now on. She nodded, holding his gaze. Then I am in. But if this foundation carries my name, it carries yours too. He smiled. Ward and Cruz Foundation. I like the sound of that. Later that afternoon, reporters gathered in the grand hall for the official announcement. The same room where months earlier chaos had erupted was now filled with hope. Cameras flashed as Ethan took the stage. Lena stood beside him, her posture calm but confident. Ethan began, his voice strong and steady. Months ago, this company faced darkness. We lost people, trust, and nearly everything we built. But courage does not always come from power. Sometimes it comes from one act of kindness that changes everything. He looked at Lena as he said it. This foundation is dedicated to those who choose integrity over comfort, truth over fear. Because one person's bravery can remind us all that good still matters. Applause filled the room. Reporters rushed to capture every word, but Ethan did not care about the headlines anymore. He cared about the meaning behind them. After the event, the two of them stepped outside into the courtyard. The air was cool, touched with the scent of blooming jasmine. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lena said quietly, "It feels different standing here now." Ethan nodded. "It feels right." She looked at him, her voice soft but sincere. "You could have kept hiding, but you chose to tell the truth. That means more than any award or headline." He smiled faintly. "You gave me the courage to do it." They walked along the path lined with flowers and small lights. Near the fountain, Ethan stopped and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small silver pendant, a circle engraved with the words, "One act of courage." This was made from the same metal as the bullet casing from the gala, he said. A reminder of how one moment changed everything. Lena took it carefully, her eyes shining. "You kept it?" "I kept everything that mattered," he said, "including the person who made me believe in doing the right thing again." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city hummed quietly around them, alive and peaceful. Finally, Ethan said softly, "Lena, when this all started, I did not know who you were. I only knew that you risked everything for a stranger. But now I know you are the reason I am still standing. And I do not want to imagine the rest of this story without you." Lena's heart pounded as she met his eyes. "Are you asking what I think you are?" Ethan smiled. "I am asking if you will stay by my side, not as my employee, but as my partner." She laughed gently, tears mixing with her smile. "That depends. Do you plan on getting shot at again?" He grinned. "Not if I can help it." As the sunlight bathed them in gold, she took his hand. "Then yes, Ethan. I will stay." They stood there as the world moved quietly around them. Two people who had walked through chaos and found peace, not because of money or status, but because of courage, trust, and the simple power of doing what was right. The story that began with a single act of bravery had come full circle, and this time it ended not in fear, but in hope. A year later, the city skyline looked different. A new glass tower stood beside the river, gleaming in the morning light. At the top floor, a silver plaque read the Ward and Cruz Foundation, for acts of courage. Inside, the air was filled with the quiet rhythm of purpose. Volunteers moved through the halls. Photographs of everyday heroes lining the walls, firefighters, nurses, teachers, and anonymous Good Samaritans who had changed lives without asking for reward. Ethan Ward stood at the center of the new atrium, watching guests arrive for the Foundation's first annual One Kindness Day. It was an idea Lena Cruz had planted months earlier to celebrate compassion as loudly as the world celebrates success. Children carried white balloons, and a local choir rehearsed softly near the stage. The atmosphere was hopeful, alive. Lena approached from across the room wearing a simple navy dress, her badge clipped neatly to her side. "Everything is ready," she said. "The mayor just confirmed he will be here for the opening ceremony." Ethan smiled, pride and admiration in his voice. "You did all this, Lena. I only signed the checks." She shook her head. "You gave it a name. You gave it a reason to exist. People needed that more than another company or speech." They stood together in silence for a moment, looking around at the crowd, families, students, even former employees who had come to thank them. The world they had fought to protect now stood stronger because they had refused to give in. When the ceremony began, Ethan took the stage, his voice calm but full of gratitude. A year ago, this building was just an idea. Today it is a symbol of something we almost forgot, that courage is contagious. One act of kindness can ripple through an entire city and change more than any headline or fortune ever could. Applause echoed through the atrium. He turned to Lena, who joined him at the podium. Her voice carried steady warmth. When I met Ethan, I thought he was the kind of man who lived behind glass walls, untouchable, unreachable. I was wrong. He showed me that real strength is not in power, but in compassion. This foundation exists because he chose to listen, not command. Because he believed that doing good is not weakness, it is leadership. The crowd erupted again, and for a brief moment both of them stood still, smiling at each other. There were no reporters pushing for angles, no investors watching for mistakes, just people who had come to celebrate hope. After the event, as the guests filtered out and the last notes of music faded, Ethan and Lena walked together through the quiet building. The evening sun cast long streaks of orange across the marble floor. Ethan said softly, "Do you remember the first time we met? You told me to be quiet." Lena laughed. "I remember you almost died because you would not listen." He smiled, his tone gentle. "And you saved my life because you refused to stay silent." They stopped near a framed photograph on the wall, the moment from that chaotic night a year ago, captured by a photographer. In it, Ethan was on the stage, and Lena was reaching toward him, unaware that the world was about to change for both of them. "I used to hate this picture," Ethan said. "It reminded me of everything I lost. But now, it reminds me of everything I gained." Lena's voice softened. "You gained peace. You gained purpose." He nodded. "And I gained you." The silence that followed was gentle, the kind that carried meaning instead of emptiness. Outside, the city glowed under the evening lights, alive and unbroken. Lena looked up at the photograph one last time. "You know, Ethan, I never thought one reckless decision could lead to all of this." Ethan smiled faintly. "Neither did I. But maybe that is what courage really is, doing the right thing even when you cannot see where it leads." She turned to him, her expression tender. "So, Mr. Ward, what happens next?" He took her hand slowly, his voice calm and certain. "Next, we keep building, we keep helping, and we keep remembering that none of this started with money or power. It started with a single choice to care." They stepped outside onto the terrace as the city lights flickered to life below them. The river shimmered, and the wind carried the faint sound of laughter from the celebration below. Ethan wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, there was no fear, no uncertainty, only peace. In the distance, fireworks bloomed above the skyline, painting the night in gold and silver. Lena leaned against him and whispered, "Be quiet, Ethan. Just watch." He smiled and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." And under the endless New York sky, the story that began with chaos ended in quiet triumph, a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of courage can change not just one life, but two hearts forever.